the responsibilities actually given to the periphery, in other words, the federating units in Nigeria, is the same responsibilities, are the same responsibilities given to states in all federations. But the recognition of the fact that they are not equal, the states are not equal, has led some countries to come out with what they call stabilization programs. And how stabilization program is defined varies from one state to the other. Now, the issue of restructuring, again, it's been argued that before state creation, before the 12 state creation and later to 6 states, the country was stable. There was competition, amongst the various units. It was the creation of state that destroyed this competition, that destroyed this stability. I beg to disagree here. One of the major reasons advanced for the collapse of the First Republic was precisely because the states the state or the regions were too big, too large, and therefore they were threatening the center. Mbadwe, in one of the seminars, one of the presentations I made, I even quoted Chief Mbadwe, where he argued in that light. Now, in terms of centralization, I also argued that when the state, a regional structure was created by the McPherson Constitution, Chief Nnamdi Azikiwe was opposed to it. He said it was going to lead to departmentalization of Nigeria. And if we don't take care, Pakistanization of Nigeria will be the reality, will be the outcome. And so there was this consensus by Nigerian leaders at that time that we need to break the regions so that they do not continue to actually threaten the center. Talked about centrifugal and centripetal forces. And so before the eve of the Civil War, the 12th state structure came into being, and it has consistently gone. Now, the issue that arises is, are the states poor because of their size, or precisely because they have not been creative in revenue generation? I've mentioned the fact that virtually all states, all countries that are oil producing, major oil producing countries with modern constitutions, no states, none of them has states which is self-sufficient. Most of them, virtually all of them, go to the federal government for aid. They don't call it, they have all sorts of terms for it. So they do not generate their resources internally. I want to be showed one country where the states are totally independent of the center. In Nigeria, we'll be told about Lagos. There's no doubt about the fact that the leadership in Lagos has been very, very creative in revenue generation. But the fact also is that Lagos also benefits from our structural arrangement. It is argued, even when I was coming here this morning, on the radio, people are saying that Lagos, most of the VAT comes from Lagos. And so Lagos raises more taxes. But precisely because all the companies, most of the companies in Nigeria are actually located in Lagos, where they pay one tax, and that's all. They don't pay tax elsewhere outside of Lagos. As if other states, if we don't maintain this structure, and we say that VAT should be distributed in the states that are corrected, in fact, the advantage which Lagos enjoys will be destroyed, because Katsina, Kano, Edo, and Co will begin to tax those companies also in order to raise their revenue, and you are messing up the structure. It is not good for a country. If we have difficulties, we have to actually look inward, ask ourselves, why is it that we are having these countries? I've taken this comparative approach to show that there's nothing which is happening in Nigeria which is not happening in other countries, oil producing or mineral resource producing countries. Now, what is also unique about Nigeria is the collection. Is the collection of these taxes. Whereas in some countries like the United States, taxes are collected and shared immediately. In Nigeria, it is between the federal government, federating unit, and the central government. In Nigeria, it is actually kept in one basket and redistributed across the country. That is what is unique about Nigeria. But otherwise, there's nothing, as I said, which happens in Nigeria which does not happen elsewhere. And so financial viability of states, centralization of the federal government, I mean, it's not an argument. You know, there is no over-centralization in Nigeria. If you look at countries that have started with weak center, today they have ended up with strong center. One, as a result of either constitutional amendment or pronouncement by the Supreme Court. If you look at the history of the United States, it started, the center was very weak at the beginning. But due to one or two constitutional amendments and pronouncement by the Supreme Court over time, the center has become very, very strong. In the case of India, it started initially also with a strong center, but the center got stronger again with practice and with a pronouncement by the Supreme Court. And what I want to raise before I finish this presentation is the fact that globalization is imposing on states certain level of centralization. We cannot forbid. Regulation of, for example, air traffic cannot be done at the state level. It has to be done globally. Certain international treaties are signed not by the state, but by the federal government and domesticated within the country. And so much as there is clamor for decentralization across the country and globally, there are certain developments globally which is also creating centralization. And so for us in our country is sit down and not to actually repeat that which is not correct. We have to look at which exists elsewhere, what we've been doing, and begin to find a way of tinkering with it in order to serve our own purposes. After all, federations are a product of their own history and circumstances, as he has mentioned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.